T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Fellow citizen of tech, welcome to yet another podcast where at Zutphen and at PC Banks discuss their deepest feelings with one another and for one another. Wait, actually, no, we don't do that. Just in case you started feeling uncomfortable, yeah, we don't do that. And if this is the first time you've ever listened to this show, you should visit citizensoftech.com where our entire astonishing library of nerdery is available. Rather, we bring you zombie urine, augmented geology, robot waitstaff, anti-drone weaponry, hydrogen peroxide seawater, fun facts about your favorite morning stimulant, and carrot farming.
That's our show today?
It's kind of an eclectic mix.
Okay. Oh, well, first up is zombie urine, I guess.
Zombie urine.
Okay, maybe we took some liberties with the title here, but
Had to.
There's a story coming from ScienceDaily.com, and the big idea is you can test your urine for viruses. Well, I mean, not you, but there's a test here. So the zombie apocalypse is coming. We know this, right?
I mean, there's documentaries about this.
Well, many of them.
Yeah.
How do we test to find out if you're infected? Pee in this cup, and now we can tell that there's a virus in there that means you're going to be a zombie.
Amazing. Will it tell you what kind of zombie you're going to become? Like the slow shambler, the fast wall walker? Yeah.
Okay, I'm making the zombie part up entirely, but the big idea is, in all sincerity, that using urine and some electricity, you can detect and test for a very specific kind of virus. And here's how it works. What?
Those two things are not supposed to mix.
They are not. They are not. And so thankfully the urine comes out of your body first.
Oh, okay.
Aha, yes. Okay. So you or whatever critter is being tested for a virus, your urine is extracted in whatever the normal way would be. A very thin wire, about as thin as a human hair, would act as an electrode that goes into the liquid.
Okay.
And then there is a set of molecules that would naturally attract the virus being tested for is added to the urine. So this would be a mix of enzymes and antibodies, things that would naturally bind themselves
and
to
react
the virus.
with, right.
When the virus, the enzymes, and the antibodies all glom on together and then bump into the electrode that's as thin as a human hair, there is a measurable change in the current. And so now you know, that was detected. That triumvirate glob was detected because it hit the wire, and you know that therefore the virus is present in the urine.
Huh. Okay. So are we able to detect or are they able to detect yet, like with any reasonable certainty, what the virus is? Was that part of this?
So the enzyme and the antibodies are what determines what the virus is. In other words, they're going to put a particular enzyme and antibody combination into the urine to test for some specific virus.
Gotcha.
And so depending on what you're testing for, it's going to be a different mix of stuff.
Yeah, it's not like a broad spectrum test necessarily.
No,
that's going to pinpoint what it is. It's we're testing for this, and it's positive or it's negative.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And but the big deal is it's instant. You don't have to take a sample, send it off to a lab,
culture it,
and all the rest of that stuff. The long-term hope is that this is going to be used as a field test, so that you could. And this is kind of a problem they have now because they don't have a field sort of package where you could send this thing out and it's rugged and easy to use and and so on. It's really all lab conditions right now. It's proof of concept. They prove that it works, but they got to make it easy to use now.
Well, I mean, if you think about if you go to the doctor, you're not feeling well or whatever, and they think, oh, you might have a virus.
You might be about to become a zombie.
Right. You might be becoming a zombie. They give you, this is our best guess based on your symptoms of the antibiotic or the antiviral that you should be on. Now we're going to do, we're going to take this sample and send it to the lab, and then in, 3 to 5 business days, we'll get back to you and let you know whether we prescribed the right thing.
Yeah, whether our guess was good.
And then, if we didn't, you'll go to your pharmacy and pick up the right prescription. So the ability to eliminate that factor is a big deal as well, I imagine.
Yep, it's good stuff. Now, you found another article here on augmented reality for geology.
Yeah, so this This actually, I just stumbled upon the YouTube video that looked really cool. It's actually a couple of years old at this point, but some geologists at UC Davis have developed this augmented reality application using a sandbox, a Microsoft Kinect, and a projector.
So when you say augmented reality, my brain thinks of I have goggles on, and depending on what I'm looking at, different information about whatever I'm seeing through the screen comes up. I'm augmenting reality. Some of those iPhone apps that can do the language translation. I think we might have talked about this in the last show.
Yeah.
Right? This is what we're talking about?
Yeah, kind of, except in this case there's no headset, there's no additional hardware beyond the initial setup. So especially in the YouTube video, it just shows a family playing around with this thing at a museum. There's a Microsoft Xbox 360 Kinect hanging from
the camera,
the ceiling.
It's got the depth.
It's got two cameras, and it can detect depth. And then there's just a regular LCD projector hanging up from the ceiling as well, pointed down at the sandbox. And the first thing you notice is that there are...
A sandbox, you mean a literal box with sand in it?
Yeah, it's a literal 4x4, 4 foot by 4 foot square box, or roughly. And it's a topographical map, basically, with different colors and gradations.
Oh, right. So as you move the sand around, the Kinect sees what's going on, and then the computer in the background says, all right, projector, project this on top of the image?
In near real time, it's like a half a second to a second delay. You can shove a pile of sand together or pull sand toward you, and it will create a ravine, and then it redraws using the projector a new topo map with updated coloring, water, etc. It's a really cool little gadget that they set up. The big, the current use for it is really to help teach geology.
But if the speed gets there, I mean, you could imagine a lot of other uses for this too. So right now, it's obvious you can move sand around in real time, change the topography that's being projected on top. So you've got this sense of mapping and all of that. But I mean, imagine so some of the virtual reality rooms that I've heard about have hard objects in there, walls and tables and things that are just blank, and then you project onto them some image depending on what the virtual reality environment is that you're experiencing. So this seems like it could be tailored into that sort of functionality too.
Yeah, I mean, it can go. I mean, augmented reality is just one big open door. Like, there's so much potential to just take all of the ideas that everyone's sort of coming up with and combining them into one, potentially cohesive concept. There's a lot of room for innovation.
How far away are we from the holodeck?
I knew you were going there.
Well, I mean, it's such a big thing in Star Trek, right? And it's such an amazing sub-storyline that it opens your mind to all the stuff. So if you could generate a 3D world on the fly, I don't know how you'd have a malleable object world that would, sprout around you. That seems like a lot of problems to overcome. But let's say you could do that and then project on top of it whatever it is that you're supposed to be seeing. You're a step towards that. It's not how the holodeck supposedly works in Star Trek, which is photons and so on. But,
right. But yeah, I mean, the haptic feedback gear that's out there sort of can already begin. We're approaching the point where
wearing the gloves,
it can make you feel like you're touching something, even though you're not, because you're getting the feedback. It's super cool. So, what's this about Pepper taking your order?
Okay, so we're talking about augmented reality. I guess this is maybe where we'll retire, when the robots take over the entire world, and Pepper is one of those robots. So, you know how back in the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of automation and concern that people were going to lose their jobs to automated robots and all this. Well, here's yet another case of that. Pepper is this humanoid robot that MasterCard is behind. MasterCard, like the payment card people, those people. And they are working with Pizza Hut Asia to send this Pepper, a humanoid robot that's going to show up at your table, take your order, and make upselling suggestions, it sounds like, and then kind of gauge your reaction to what is being suggested and so on. So it's a sales tool / automation tool that would replace a server. And it's just another example of automation in our life, and what are we going to do with these things, and what jobs are humans doing now that we could automate and make the human go away. And in this case, pepper is being used for information gathering as well, and sending that back to home. The way the article read, I took it to mean there was intelligence gathering going on. Well, we presented the offer this way, and the people reacted like this.
So there's an element of data mining going on. Almost.
Definitely. Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
It's interesting that Pizza Hut and MasterCard are working together on this because, Wendy's and even McDonald's are starting to explore replacing humans with robots because, the $15 minimum wage thing, and they're saying a $35,000 robot will be cheaper over, the life of the equipment than paying a human to do the same job sort of deal. I guess the question remains, can the robot actually do the job in a sufficient manner? And I guess that's basically what this is a trial run for that sort of question.
I'm fairly sure some of the humans I've interacted with at McDonald's are, in fact, robots. But okay, that was mean. I used to work at McDonald's, so it's okay. I can say it. But, oh, man, I have really mixed feelings about this. It's all very awkward because, there's a food aspect to this, too. What are Pizza Hut and McDonald's and most of these fast food places actually serving to you? Utter crap.
Right.
Garbage
unequivocally
food that was harvested and created through all of these automated means in many cases using food that was produced in horrible ways, the meats and the way the dough is created and the conditioners to make the breads that are used in these products. It's all scary if you start digging into it, which is something we are becoming more and more educated about, and documentaries like Food Incorporated or Super Size Me reveal what this food does to us. There's beginning to be ties now to cancer research is looked at in the context of what have you been eating for the last 30 years, the highly processed foods in America. It just seems like if we had automation to that process, it's like insult to injury. All this food is terrible for you, and we're not even going to bother selling it to you with a human. We're going to stick a robot in front of you to fill your face with this crap. Eat it. Eat it. Eat it now. Would you like to upsize that? Supersize, please?
Strap on the feed bag.
And what's terrible about it, most of all, Big Macs are delicious.
Super good.
Oh, brother. I am a sucker for a Big Mac. Pizza Hut pizza, I'm kind of neutral on.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's always, it's a little greasy and heavy and never exactly. You want pizza. Pizza Hut's like the last place I would go to for pizza. Is it? You're nodding your head at me, yeah.
Yeah. You're left with an empty plate that is full of regret.
But this automation thing is not going away. I mean, there's another story. I don't have all the details on it, but I know Uber.
Yep.
The car people, right? The get you from point A to point B people, the alternative to a taxi service, they are testing driverless cars.
Yep.
That is happening.
Well, there was the article we discussed several months back now about Uber talking with Elon Musk about we'll buy all the self-driving cars you can produce.
Yes.
It's all about automation. They're shoehorning it in anywhere they can. More efficiency, and it's definitely not going away. You're right.
So, side note for people that are interested in pondering our future of automation and robots and artificial intelligence and that stuff, if you have Amazon Prime, Amazon Prime does a lot of their own original video. There's a new series I just discovered called Humans. Season 1 is out there. I think it's 8 episodes long. I binged the first 4 episodes. I watched the first one. I was hooked immediately. Beautifully photographed. William Hurt is in it. And it's just fabulously acted, well scripted, beautifully photographed, and an interesting and compelling story. Not an unusual storyline, but basically the robots that were built to serve mankind in humanoid form. Some of them are sentient. Well, why are they sentient, and what's happening, and and so on, and the impact of society. So it does cover. There's the subtext of the humanoid robots that are becoming sentient, and what are they doing. And then, again, not an unusual storyline for that.
Sort of the Cylons, but with less shooting. Is that
less shooting so far? Very much less shooting, yes. But then also they begin exploring the societal impact of having these humanoid creatures that are built to serve man and have different programmed functions. This one is very good at cooking and taking care of your house, and can interact with you on a limited way. What does that do to you? They explore all of those subjects, which for me has hooked me. It makes it a much more interesting and thought-provoking kind of a storyline.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
So not only all of this, Eric, but we can knock drones from the sky now.
That's amazing. and not with a physical projectile.
No. So there's a gun that allows you to knock drones from the sky. So there's a gun, you aim it at the drones, and if you pull one trigger, it disrupts the command and control communications channel of the drone. If you pull the other trigger, it disrupts the GPS or GLONASS. Both of those are sat-nav. GPS, the U.S.-based system, GLONASS, the Russian-based system. It will disrupt that signal with the other trigger. And the whole thing, it's a gun with a radio beam. It works up to 400 meters in a 30-degree cone. Yes, I want it so bad.
That's great.
Oh, it just sounds
you
like...
don't even have a drone to shoot it at. But
And we're living in the future. I would shoot it at my cat just to see what happens. Here, kitty.
Fell over. I guess my cat's a drone.
I don't know what would happen. But now this is a military grade weapon.
Sure.
That's the purpose of this thing right now. It is not legal for me to have, even though I want. I cannot have because it's a jammer, effectively.
Yeah, right.
Is what this thing is. You're disrupting the radio frequency that specific critical services function on, the command and control channel of the drone or the GPS that the drone may be using for its flight patterns.
Yep.
That's illegal.
You're blocking FCC-regulated frequencies.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why
So
we
it would
can't
actually be a
have nice
federal
things.
offense.
It would actually be a federal offense to have this awesome gun. And so it's military government kind of use. That's why the thing was created.
Sure.
That said, future versions of this thing, this drone buster, would tell the drone to fly home or land on the ground. And the way it would work is it's just going to cycle through a bunch of well-known drone commands, aim it at the drone, and hopefully one of the commands it's cycling through hits and works with this thing and puts it on the ground.
It's almost like a universal remote where you just, press the power button until it actually turns your TV on.
Yeah, which is that was interesting for me to read that because it implies that there's currently, I'm not really up on drone communication stuff, but it sounds like there's no secure communication channel or pairing that goes on between controller and the drone.
It's literally just the radio frequency.
Literally just signals going over radio frequency, or else that solution, just aim commands at the thing until something works, would not do anything.
Right, and I got to think that there's no set protocol for how to send and receive commands either. I wonder if there's some sort of, okay, we're establishing a new command is coming. This is how it's done, like a packet, if you think about, right? Like a frame is formed, and inside of that, a command is sent. Is there some sort of protocol that says, okay, this is a movement command, or this is I'm guessing no. I'm guessing right now it's sort of the Wild West.
Since we are guessing, I mean, if you're a citizen of tech listening to this show and you're a drone nerd and are up on this stuff, we'd love to talk to you.
Fill us in.
citizensofTech@gmail.com, and we'll talk to you whether you come on the show or just want to give us some information in the back channel. Either way, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do our job for us.
That's pretty much what we're saying. Yeah, I am lazy like that.
Prevent
Absolutely.
me having to do my own research. I love it.
But you did do some research, Eric, on this hydrogen peroxide for fuel cells thing. Sunlight, seawater, solar cells. I read it. I got very confused. Educate me.
All right. So this comes to us from phys.org. This is sunlight plus seawater equals H2O2 for fuel cells. So
H2O2 hydrogen peroxide?
Hydrogen peroxide, yep. Okay. So some Japanese researchers from Osaka University have released a paper that details a new method of photocatalytic production of hydrogen peroxide. And so what's the big deal here? Hydrogen fuel cells generally require pressurized hydrogen gas, or H2, or super low temperature liquid form. So, the cryo liquid hydrogen.
It's a lot of energy, and now you've got this complex storage problem because you got to store the pressurized hydrogen gas. And that's current hydrogen. Like
correct.
Cars, there's been a few cars that have been powered by hydrogen fuel cells. That's what they were.
Yeah, and
highly
it is.
Pressurized.
It's a big problem because it's impractical, it's expensive, and it's frankly quite dangerous to have pressurized hydrogen gas. So hydrogen peroxide is inherently a much safer compound. It's not...
I mean, is this the same stuff I would buy at a drugstore?
Yeah, except usually that's like 2 or 3%, I think.
Very low, okay.
And this would be a higher percentage.
Got it.
But it is much easier to store in a liquid form, and by proxy, it is cheaper to do so.
Okay.
The big deal about this research paper that they released is the breakthrough efficiency of 0.28%.
That's terrible.
So the actual photocatalytic efficiency, so the actual process of converting seawater into hydrogen peroxide is 0.55% efficient, which is a new breakthrough, actually.
As terrible as it is,
Right.
it's actually
it's
a big
significantly
deal.
better than what existed. And the fuel cell itself is 50% efficiency. So that comes down to 0.275, 0.28.
So we use so there's solar power at this extremely low efficiency nonetheless, but it is being used, the solar power is being used to convert seawater into hydrogen peroxide
For no output of energy, essentially. You know,
Okay.
I mean, it's just readily available solar power, right? So the big problem with this is in comparison with photovoltaic efficiency, which consumer
like
grade
solar cells.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
your regular silicon solar cells. I mean, you can relatively inexpensively get 20% efficiency, and you can get up to 36% efficiency, and then there are the crazy ones that are like 44%, but those are big money. You and I will never afford those. So the efficiencies sound way out of whack, right? But the big deal here is that it's about economies of scale. So if we can make a hydrogen fuel cell that you can fuel up just in moments, and once you fill this thing, you can drive your car for 600-700 miles off of the hydrogen fuel cell, then it doesn't matter that it took a million gallons of water to come up with however many, 1,000 gallons of hydrogen peroxide, whatever the conversion rate is there, because once the system's in place and it's powered by the sun and we have trillions of gallons of water,
No lack of seawater to use as a source.
yeah, exactly, then it doesn't matter. The scale of the operation to produce it offsets the amount of time that is required to produce it and gives you a faster fill up time for your hydrogen fuel cell.
That's interesting and kind of important. It was a podcast I was listening to this morning where the guy was talking about how many calories it takes to produce 1 calorie of certain kinds of food that are grown. He was talking like 9 calories get expended to produce 1 calorie of certain kinds of food, raising meat particularly.
Right.
So here's another example of if you can get it for free or more or less, then that's worthwhile. That's sustainable.
Right. Exactly.
Sustainable.
And the convenience factor, potential convenience factor of it's not like a Tesla supercharger station where it's going to take you 30 minutes to get to 80%, and then it's an hour and a half to get any further.
Yep.
It's fill it up and drive away like people are used to now with fossil fuels. So the adoption rate could potentially be higher because of that. So that's sort of the big deal of it. So speaking of liquids that power things,
Yes.
how well do you know coffee?
I know coffee. I like coffee. I like to drink coffee. I've been to a coffee plantation one time in Hawaii.
Did you really?
Yeah, there were like red beans and different varieties, and there was like a walking tour you could go around and all that stuff. So I don't know coffee. I don't know coffee super well, but it's a thing. I enjoy coffee very much.
Well, we're all nerds, and coffee and nerds go hand in hand, right?
do.
So I have 10 questions for you about coffee.
Oh crap! Okay, time to display my ignorance. Put my dunce cap on.
And not all of it is specifically coffee. Some of it is like cappuccino, etc. So speaking of cappuccino, number 1, the name cappuccino is derived from what?
An Italian man with a hat. No? Cap. That's all I got.
Oh, I thought you were going for Al Pacino.
Where is it derived?
It is derived from the resemblance to the brown cowls worn by the Capuchin monks. So
Wow.
cap did not stand for the hat, but
so I wasn't. Yeah, but I wasn't too. Okay.
it's the cowl.
So what else don't I know about coffee?
So espresso. Any guess what espresso is named for?
I mean, I know espresso is very concentrated. I know it's used with very fine grounds and a press process if you make it properly. I believe, but that doesn't give me a clue as to origins.
So it is derived from the Italian for when something is forced out or pressed.
So okay,
espresso.
Got it.
So coffee was the first food to be blank.
Oh, we talked about this. I remember that. Hang on. I remember this. Freeze-dried.
Right.
Yes.
It was the first one to be freeze-dried. So your instant coffee crystals that you love so dearly
So is that that's what instant coffee is?
liquid
Is like
coffee freeze-dried.
Oh, liquid coffee freeze-dried. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the bean.
No. And so there's a bunch of reasons why that's advantageous. It's lighter to ship because there's no water weight.
Right.
It has a very long shelf life. It's also, obviously, as the name indicates, instant.
So that's what instant coffee is. It's freeze-dried. Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yep.
I did not know that. That is interesting to me.
So
I
there
always
we go.
wondered what the little brown things were. They always scared me a little bit. Now I'm less scared of it.
What are
doesn't
these
sound so
weird
bad.
crystals? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4. 40% of the world's coffee is produced by what 2 countries in South America?
Is that's where Arabica beans come from? Is
Yeah.
in South America?
Yeah.
Boy, I'm dumb. Okay. And I'm not even going to try. Sumatra? I don't know.
Colombia and Brazil.
Oh, of course. Colombia, that's obvious.
Okay. So, number 5. The Kopi Luwak is the world's most expensive coffee. It's up to $600 per pound.
Okay.
You're nodding like you might know where I'm headed with this.
Ask the question.
What's so special about this coffee?
Is this the one where the cat eats it and poops it out?
Yeah, the Sumatran wild cat.
Yeah, that's when they harvest the beans.
And then the coffee is brewed with it.
Because it's got to go through the track of this to give it its unique whatever special flavor.
Yep. Yeah, it breaks down certain
awful.
phenols and stuff like that.
That is awful coming from the man who has not tried it, but I would try it.
Okay, so coffee beans, number 6. Coffee beans grow on what kind of plant?
I've been to the coffee plantation, so I'm kind of going with what I remember. Is it a tree, or would you call it a bush?
It's actually a bush.
Okay.
It is a relatively large bush, so it kind of looks like a small tree, I
Yeah.
guess. But yes, it grows on a bush. Okay, so number 7, most coffees are a blend of what kind of beans?
Oh, like point of origin, like Arabica and Colombian.
So it's Arabica and Robusta beans being
Robusta
the
beans.
2 most common. I'm not familiar with what a Robusta coffee bean is, but the internet said so it must be true.
There, of course.
Number 8, yeah, I don't know this one either. An ibrick is what?
Not a clue. What is an ibrick?
An ibrick it's a Turkish pot used to make just apparently an amazing cup of coffee.
I have had Turkish coffee before, and it's kind of like espresso. Very rich. You probably want to sweeten it.
Yeah.
You don't drink it in mass quantities. You drink it out of a very small cup. Yeah.
Number 9, the Arabica varieties such as Java and Mocha are named after what?
Islands?
Pretty close. They're named after their ports of origin. So where they come from.
Okay.
And then number 10, 16th century Muslim rulers banned coffee because of what?
Oh, so the Muslim rulers? So was it something to do with religion, or like did it made women excitable? I don't know.
It made everyone excitable. They
Okay.
banned it because of the stimulating effects. So basically, it was too much for the morning, I guess.
There you go.
I don't know. So there you go. 10 odd
Fun facts about
or fun
coffee.
facts about
All
coffee.
right. Well, content we like, Eric. I thought we'd just do a rundown of some of the podcasts that we've been listening to lately.
Sure.
So here's a couple of car ones that I've been listening to. One is Leto's Law. Leto's Law. Jay Leto is a lawyer. He works with automobile industry issues, and he's on the consumer side. So if you're like, you need help because your dealer screwed you over by doing something, you go to Jay, and he counsels you on how to deal with that, can help you take the issue to court and so on. And he's got a podcast that's 18, 20 minutes long, talking about some issue. So it's very educational. He knows the law really well. Cool show. Another auto show, Auto Complete. This is put out by CNET, I believe, and it's another 20-minute show that's just industry news. So for 1 week, they talked about Tesla and all things going on. They talked about Dieselgate recently, the VW stuff, and they did another show recently about all kinds of cheating that's been going on and about miles per gallon. And so they're quick format shows, a lot of information. If you're a car nerd, those two are kind of fun. Another kind of nerdy show that's hit or miss for me, but is The Art of Manliness. So Art of Manliness is a website. They have a lot of detailed articles, just kind of outdoors tech and, how to survive in the wilderness.
Here's how you properly shave with a straight edge.
Etc. All kinds of stuff like that. And they have a podcast, and some of the guests that come on are really interesting. And so what I've done is gone back through the catalog and just picked and chose different things that were interesting to me. About men in history or whatever, a whole bunch of stuff that is pretty...
Topic jumped out at you or whatever.
Pretty nerdy, pretty nerdy stuff. Kind of related to that is the TED Radio Hour. That's an NPR show, really popular. A lot of you have maybe heard about that. That's another one where I just pick and choose. Depending on what the topic is, they go and pick... they interview people that have spoken from the TED stage, take highlights from what they've said on the TED stage, and then talk about them in more depth. And so you get everything from how your brain works to small business in the third world to, you name it. It's all over the place what the topics are. Endlessly interesting. The Tim Ferriss Show, I still listen to that. That's also another hit or miss one for me. But Tim Ferriss, the guy who wrote The 4-Hour Workweek, The 4-Hour Body, and so on, he's got a very interesting show where he brings in people that... Sometimes the people are like, we're so awesome because we're billionaires, backslapping each other. And it's like, I can't handle those shows. But some other people that have really accomplished some interesting things, he'll interview about how they did what they did. Book authors, people in film, etc. And they can be fascinating shows. And Tim's a good interviewer, and he keeps getting better. Now, another one I just stumbled on, I don't remember how I found it. I think I heard about it on yet another podcast, but it was Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin. So Alec Baldwin, the actor, he shows up in everything, him and his brothers, right? So Here's the Thing. I think this is a WNYC show, or maybe it's an NPR kind of a show, but Alec just interviews interesting people. I've listened to 2 shows so far and been hooked. Alec is a decent interviewer. He actually expresses an opinion now and again. And interviews fascinating. The first show I listened to was with Anthony Weiner, the Wienergate guy. Remember taking pictures of his junk and texting people, and he got caught for it, lost his job as a senator or congressman of some kind. I can't remember if it was a senator or congressperson. Anyway, and to listen to this interview, you'd think, Anthony Weiner, I'm going to have zero interest in this show and want to punch the guy in the face. I listened to the whole thing. It was really compelling. I was surprised.
Very interesting. I'm going to have to check that out.
Alec really pulled a lot of good stuff out.
Cool.
And just one more I think I've mentioned on the show before. Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. You're nodding your head. You know about Hardcore History?
Yep, I listened to that. It's one of those shows that you could start in on it and really not know what you're getting yourself into. And then you're 8 hours into listening to, a few episodes, and it's.
It only comes out once every few months, but it's
when it comes out, it
4.5 hours of Dan Carlin engrossing you in history. He just takes history and tells it to you in a way you can understand and feel engrossed by, and he just culls all these different historian sources and then makes a compilation of what he thinks happened in a certain time. He sets the background stage for you, the politics of the time, the religion of the time, and puts it all together into this. You just can't stop listening. It's so awesome.
Right.
He's
never done
great.
halfway.
He's great.
It's always the complete show. Everything is there.
What else are you listening to?
Beyond the few, like the TED Radio Hour I've listened to and Hardcore History, Radio Lab is always high on my list.
Yeah, I used to listen to Radio Lab. It kind of fell off my radar.
Yeah, I still find plenty to listen to. They always have very interesting subjects, and that's a very eclectic show. It ranges from the black box sort of thing that we discussed a while back with anesthesia. That was the actual source material that made me interested in doing that bit for the show, I don't know, a few months ago, to talking about Cuban gang members. Like it covers the gamut of all these different topics that just like half the time I'm like, how did they even think to come up with a show about that? Always a really good show to listen to. It's some people say it's hyper edited, but I actually like the editing. sometimes they cut multiple people saying the same word together or whatever. It's just it's sort of a stylish.
I remember that. Okay, yeah, it is very, very stylish. Not hyper edited, like they cut a lot of stuff out, but just they really professionally put it together, so it's got this feel of its own.
Yeah, it's a very distinctive feel, and to listen to it as someone who edits a podcast, I listen to it and go, wow, because it's like a 40-minute show, and they must spend 8 hours or 10 hours editing it. They
must have a staff and stuff.
Yeah, it's WNYU.
Yeah.
So the other podcast that I haven't been listening to as much, but I pick and choose is the Nerdist podcast.
Chris Hardwick?
Chris Hardwick, yep. So it's mainly interviewing celebrities, whether they be movie stars, comedians, book authors,
but nerdy
things like
people.
that. Yeah, generally speaking. I can take or leave it sometimes. I basically choose the ones that have guests on that I'm interested in hearing from. It's not really a safe for work podcast.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of his comedy bits, and he's a bit. He can get pretty raunchy.
Yeah. It's crass at times. But there are good interviews with some really cool guests.
Yeah.
And like I said, I can take or leave some of them. Some of them, I'll make it 15 minutes, and I'm like, it's not really doing it for me. But some of them, it's like, wow, that was an awesome interview. And you get a little bit of a glimpse into these people's lives. So, yeah, those are the two that you didn't list that I have been actively listening to.
Well, there's some podcast ideas for you folks, and, of course, Citizens of Tech is at the top of your list. That's obvious.
Clearly.
But, then from there, you could, if you have time left, you can fill in some of these other things. Eric, did you learn anything today?
I actually did. Imagine that.
What did you learn?
I learned that a carrot farmer who was trying to cut back on food waste because half of carrots produced are, quote-unquote, too ugly for grocery stores. This farmer carved and created the first batch of baby carrots using a green bean cutter. And now, 30 years later, those carrots account for 70% of all carrot sales.
That's funny. So I mean, we eat baby carrots. They're all, and it makes sense now because they don't look like carrots anymore. They look like carrot bits.
Yeah.
It's like okay, there's a carrot there, but they smoothed off all the edges and rounded them up. They made them pretty because they were too ugly.
They were ugly carrots.
They were eating ugly carrots.
Yeah.
Wow.
The carrots that you wouldn't want to eat until they're carved down, whittled down to a pleasing aesthetic shape.
Oh, that's sad and awesome. Okay.
And with that, fellow citizens, we remind you to eat your veggies, at least until next week, when maybe we'll talk about bacon. And hey, if you become a Patreon sponsor, we'll talk about anything you want, for real. Just head on up to citizensoftech.com/Patreon, where you'll be able to figure out the rest, because you're not like the others. You're smart.